Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. If you don't know, my name is Kate Vossen. I'm the founder of brand Pollinators, and we help impact-driven brands grow by using the power of collaboration. So we've been building a community of impact-driven founders, and we do calls like this every month. Email goes out every Sunday. And we just love being able to share any insights we can to help you grow your business and connect you with the people that can make it happen. So today we have the wonderful Jess Windell from Maven Consulting. And we are super excited because Jess knows all things PR. She has a ton of experience, and it's gonna be a good call. I have a feeling she's got a lot of great information. So Jess, if you don't know Jess, she is the founder and chief Maven of Maven Consulting, but she also has co-founded a couple other CPG brands as well. So with brand marketing and consumer habits really evolving a lot over the last decade, just noticed that PR is lagging behind. And so she used her background in CPG across her work with agencies and in-house, and really tried to merge that disconnect between brand marketers and PR teams. So she started Maven Consulting, focused on integrating these performance-driven PR into brand marketing. So Jess is going to dive into how we can revamp our thinking about PR and really get in sync with today's brand dynamics. So thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Jess.
you. Thank you so much for having me. Super
Yeah.
excited.
Awesome. Well, I know we're a lot of San Diego brands here today. Jess was actually director of the Naturally Network here in San Diego for a while, so you may recognize her face from that. But she's worked with some really cool brands, and so I think she'll have some good insights. But today we're talking about a lot of these brands that are here today are emerging brands, and so maybe that's a good way to start. Is like where do you need your company to be at or your brand to be at in order to be looking at PR, and like what should a brand at this stage have in place before they start making a big investment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I over the past couple of years since I started Maven, I've really put brands into these two buckets, which is emerging brands and established brands. And I don't believe that emerging brands should go all in on PR necessarily and spend, upwards of $10,000 a month on a retainer. Certainly, we have brands that do that, but there are fundamentals that can be put in place now because if you say I'm holding off on PR, I've heard it all in the sense of we can't track the ROI on PR. We're really focused on sales right now. We need immediate results. We have a lot that we need to achieve in the next 3 months. We can't wait 6 months for coverage to come through. So we aren't doing PR right now. We aren't engaging in PR right now. And the fact of the matter is, whether you think you are or you think you aren't, you do have a PR effort underway because your brand is out there in public. You have stakeholders that are invested in your business. You have employees, you have buyers, you have brokers, you have investors, you have social media fans that have a voice. So really what it comes down to is, are you controlling the narrative of the story that's being told about you? And it's different from you putting out marketing that says, hey, this is who we are, this is what we want you to think of us, versus how are people talking to you about you at a Naturally San Diego event? How are they talking about the experience that they've had with your brand? How are they talking about the experience they have at home when they're enjoying your brand? So I always say, the more that you can control the narrative that's happening when you're not in the room, the more you have a handle on your PR. So I did put together just a quick hit list of what things should be in place, or kind of a checklist of where to set your sights as an emerging brand when you're thinking about, we want to go out with a bang, we have an announcement to make, we have a new retailer to announce, or we have innovation that we're sharing. What should you make sure you have? And I always say the house needs to be clean, serving the best drinks, playing the best music before you invite people in. So what do you need to make sure your house kind of has in place? For me, I think those things are established brand identity. Who are you as a brand? Have you done positioning framework? Have you really looked at the competitive landscape and established what makes you you? It doesn't need to be this, crazy vast difference. I guess that's kind of on here twice, but the positioning in the landscape, looking at the competitive landscape and being able to say, here's why we're different. Here's why you should, look at us. And it may be quality, it may be your supply chain that's different, it may be your founder story that's different, or an ingredient that's different, but who are you? Product readiness and validation. I've had a lot of brands that we've launched that had to go back to the drawing board because once we put the product out into market, we got feedback that required a reformulation or even a rebrand or brand refresh. So put some feelers out, get your brand out there, get the feedback, and make sure before you go and make a splash that you have those inputs and insights and feedback that you can take into consideration and make any changes before you really go out swinging. Target audience understanding. I think this in particular can be very theoretical in the early days because you're not paying big money for consumer segmentation. But if you, especially founder-led brands, you know who your audience is. And it's a great exercise to build them out a bit more, give them names, talk about what they do on the weekends, who are they listening to and going to for influence, and who are they loyal to, who are they getting recommendations from. By doing that exercise, you can determine these are the types of brands that we should partner with because these are the types of brands that our target audience is also shopping. These are the places that our target audience is going and reading and listening to. I mentioned identify positioning in the landscape, clear objectives for marketing presence. So really what do you need to achieve in the next 6 to 12 months? That could be, we just want brand awareness. We just want our brand to show up in as many places as humanly possible so that we start getting that name recognition. Or we have a really compelling ingredient story or a nutrition story that we need to get out there. I mean, there's so many new ingredients. We're just coming off of Expo West. You have a really strong, a new ingredient that no one's really ever heard of. Getting messaging out there about that ingredient might be what needs to happen in the next 6 to 12 months, just so that you can start building traction for that conversation. And then your brand becomes the default, oh, this brand has that ingredient. Do you want quality endorsements from influencers or media that you can use in your buyer and broker decks or investor decks? That is a very real, tangible need that doesn't necessarily hit on brand awareness because we're saying we want 3 pieces of coverage or 3 awards that we won that give us the stamp of approval and that third-party endorsement that we can then leverage through our decks that or on our website or on our social. The last 2 are traffic driving. So we want to get people to our website. So the more we can incentivize people to click through that article or click through that link on our social or someone else's social, that's really our objective. And the 5th is share of voice. So when you think about the competitive landscape, you don't want to not be showing up in places that your competitors are, or share of stomach or share of wallet. I often ask our brands, it's not just directly who's in your set, it's also who's getting that customer or who's getting that customer's conversation. You want to be part of that conversation. So sometimes it's just not missing out on opportunities more than it is actual having a strong, tangible result that you can utilize. And then lastly is the ability to scale. If something goes viral, if something hits, you don't want to run out of product. I just had a brand that is not, they're an emerging brand, but we've been working together for 2 years and we're going through a manufacturing shift and we ran out of product in our biggest month of the year. And we spun it, of course, because we're publicists and we found a way to spin it. Oh my God, you sold us out of our product, but not a great thing when we're getting all this coverage and we don't have anything to fulfill orders. So the ability to scale fast is very important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good point. Like you said, I love that idea of getting your house clean, getting all, having the right drinks and being ready to invite people in. And that
Yeah,
having product is obviously a big part of that, because they're showing
absolutely.
up, you want to be able to give them something. So you talked about, like, if you need to make an announcement or talk about a new innovation or a new ingredient, like, what are the kinds of stories that are best to share in terms of, these PR pushes? Is it like more about that innovation or like awards that you've won, or is it more about your story, like how you got started? Like,
Yeah.
what do you think is really some key like stories that do well?
Yeah. So I think you really have to take a step back from that question, not you specifically, but as a brand, you need to take a step back from that question and go back to the objectives, right?
Mhm.
Because if your objective is we want to be in trade media, we want to, especially as an emerging brand, that's where a lot of writers, editors, influencers are going to see what's the latest and greatest. I mean, Expo West is a great example. Traditional consumer media are going to these events to see what's the latest and greatest in the industry. And so similarly, they're going to trade publications and seeing what's the hottest trends at Expo West. If you're looking to get into trade media, that's a different conversation or a different story than if you're getting into business media with a feature story on your brand, or you're getting into consumer media, which is typically more product focused. So each of those buckets, and those are really the three buckets that I identify as media opportunities, those are very different stories. So I would say for trade media, they care most about funding and investments, any sort of big investment round that's also viable for a business story. A lot of writers specifically only write about funding and investments. Timely news is really good for trade. So if you're launching your brand for the first time, you have product innovation, line extensions, a brand refresh or a rebrand, new retail launches. There's different types of trade, right? There's food and beverage trade, and then there's like PR week or ad age. And so if we do a campaign around dry January, that's something that we can pitch to ad week and PR week and get picked up. Probably not something that Nosh or Food Business News is going to cover.
Mhm.
Um, I would say that's probably it for like a limited edition collab or launch would be good for trade as well.
Mm.
For business, I always say to brands, don't try and get a big business feature story until you have some clout and credibility to bring to the table. So the only time that that's really a fit for like a brand new startup brand would be if a founder is coming from another brand and has started a new brand and they already have that credibility built. But you really want to have data and insights and numbers to bring to the table if you're going after business. The other thing that is a good opportunity for business stories is piggybacking on something that you happen to be an expert in or you experience that can be relevant to the conversation at hand. So I'll give you an example. I worked at Perfect Bar for 5 years, and Prime Day was like, it was the first year I think that we were on Amazon, and Prime Day was happening, and Prime Day crashed. It was like 2019. Prime Day crashed. Everyone's freaking out, and people are posting on Instagram, I can't get my Perfect Bars on Prime Day. I'm freaking out. Like, Amazon, get it together. I pitched the story to like three business writers who write about e-commerce and Amazon, and said to them the unexpected benefit of Amazon crashing for like small consumer brands or CPG brands. And I got our director of e-commerce interviewed because we basically said it brought out more brand awareness and more kind of conversation and buzz than we expected, and it was in a positive way because Amazon crashed on Prime Day. So we got to just join the conversation and not lead the conversation. So that's a really good business example. And then for consumer media, which is like the bulk of it, that's really, unfortunately, roundups are the name of the game with a lot of online digital media. And that's like your best breakfast items, the best things to get at Costco. If it's something more of a feature, it typically has to be a little harder hitting, like one of our brands was like, this brand is making Lunar New Year more tasty than ever. Or we have a lot of dietitians that bring our brands into conversation. So having a good nutrition profile and working with dietitians who regularly contribute to media publications. We can talk a little bit down the line about affiliate, but affiliate is a new way to kind of get in front of media in a non-traditional way that incentivizes them by getting commissions on purchases from your site, on your D2C site. If you have a noteworthy athlete or influencer, investor, your founder is a celebrity, that's another way to get picked up in traditional consumer media. And then doing a lot of these like collaborations and partnerships, like partake in Ben and Jerry's, Goldfish and Old Bay, those get picked up too, like the limited edition, like flash in the pan, get it while it's hot, exclusive opportunities. Those are, I think, like, fortunately and unfortunately what gets picked up, because oftentimes those things take a year to plan, but the bigger you are, certainly the more pickup you'll get for that name recognition. And so it's good to partner with brands that are bigger than you if you can. I think Coconut Cult is a great example. I have them in our slides too, of they get so much pickup from partnering with brands that are bigger than them because they have a product unlike any other that they can include brands into and kind of rinse and repeat this model. But every time they do, it gets picked up. Influencers, media love the collaborations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love hearing about that because like we're all about collaboration. And so being able to like bring brands together that have like these common goals and common values, and yeah, that reach that broader audience that that can really become aware of maybe one or multiple brands at the same time is really cool too.
Yeah.
So in terms of like, you talk about sales, and I've seen this like slide that you showed before about how PR can really do like help you with repeat sales. And so maybe you could share that or explain a little bit about how sales is, or how PR is more like a function of sales. Because I think
Absolutely.
that, yeah, that's really, it's important because like a lot of times people think of PR and like it's a hard way, you can't track it, like, we don't know what the
Totally.
ROI is, but yeah, maybe you could share a little about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you and I were talking about this earlier, but basically the old way of thinking about PR is that it's this siloed kind of redheaded stepchild that you have to engage in to grow a brand. And I literally started Maven to debunk that conversation and that theory, because I was inside of a brand for 5 years and I know that PR can be so integrated with, it has to be so integrated with marketing. And I used to have this chart. I really love visuals. And it was like marketing fuels PR and PR gets leveraged by marketing. And it just becomes this never ending cycle. And the two really have to go hand in hand. And you need to be thinking about PR when you're building your marketing strategy. And it's really good to have PR part of the conversation when you're building out some of these campaigns that could get that extra boost, could get that extra buzz, and ultimately close the loop on a lot of the things you're doing, or create more warm leads into the top of funnel. So I'll start by sharing this slide, which is more about modern PR versus traditional PR and kind of what has changed. So the media focus of just earned media is now sponsored and commerce media, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Just more media channels, more opportunities. Communication used to be, it gets published, no one gets to put their feedback. Maybe there's comments at the bottom of the article, or maybe people are writing in to the editor of the New York Times to share their feedback. Now that communication and interactiveness is happening in real time. You're seeing people post on social. I mean, think about all the brands that have been canceled because of what they post, and everyone starts freaking out, and it becomes this social moment and a crisis situation because people have voices, and one everyday Joe can get their voice heard now. That wasn't happening even 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Your stakeholders have expanded. So before, when it was just media contacts that PR people had to know, now it's influencers, podcasters, experts, athletes, celebrities, brands, and fans. We need to be part of the conversation, social listening into every outlet that the brand has access to, because again, everyone has a voice, everyone has influence in their own right. And then measuring success. I know everyone thinks, impressions are what is measured with PR, but now we can measure so much more, and we can measure not only the quantity of the coverage, which would be impressions, but it's also what's the click-through rate, what's driving traffic, what's our share of voice, and how are we in the pie of our competitive, where do we stand, and how much we're being talked about amongst our competitive set. Conversion rate, what's when things are driven from a media hit versus when they're being driven from a paid ad, looking at those side by side and saying, wow, we're getting such higher conversion rates when someone comes from a published article versus they're coming from an ad on Facebook. And then this slide is really to just show the marketing funnel that everyone has seen. It's so simple, but I think it's really important to show, where does PR have a role and where does marketing have a role? You can get awareness for your brand by putting up a billboard on Sunset Boulevard, but is that as warm of a lead coming through as somebody that is at lunch with their best friend and their best friend has what is this, a Yeti cup, and you're like, oh my God, that's such a cute cup, I want one. And then, oh, by the way, I have mud water on here. What's mud water? Oh my God, I drink my coffee with mud water every single morning. I love it so much. It just makes me feel so energized, and like I don't get that slump, and it's honestly just, it's changed my life. If you see a billboard for mud water, what do you think is going to hit harder? I'm going to ask for the link right then, right there. And oh, by the way, they gave me a discount code that I can give to you, and I get $10 off my next order. That hits so much harder than a billboard on Sunset Boulevard. So I say that because that's top of funnel coming in two different ways. Similarly, I mean, I love to hate traditional paid media and like ads, because that's where I started my career. And I was like, people with the most money get to have the most impact, right? I want to tell stories that matter. Everything has a place today. It's important to not only be sitting with your friend at brunch and see their coffee mug, and then also happen to see that billboard on Sunset Boulevard and hit them again. We're so saturated with how much we're being hit with on a daily basis. The more that you see something, the more it becomes part of your day, the more you're likely to engage with it. So as we get down the funnel, these are more of the marketing tactics that we're used to. So consideration, oh, well, where is it available? Can I even get it? Can I get it online, or do they sell it in stores near me? That's that consideration phase. The conversion is happening as close to the point of purchase as possible. So having a sampling at a demo table at Sprouts is going to probably prompt that sale a little bit more. If I heard about mud water, but I don't want to pay shipping online, so I'm going to see if they have it in store. I kind of forgot about it, but then I'm in store at Sprouts and all of a sudden they're sampling mud water, and I'm like, okay, fine, I've now heard about this 3 times, I'm going to buy it. So the sale happens, and then on the other side of the funnel, we don't talk enough about repurchase and loyalty, because you've already acquired that consumer. So thinking about, what does that loyalty and advocacy look like, and what do you need to foster? Only in the last year and a half have my brands really talked about, and really from us bringing it to the table, ambassador programs, loyalty programs. How are we engaging our existing customers to become those advocates and activists for us? What do we need to do to ensure that we not only don't lose them, we keep them when another product comes to market and it tastes like ours and looks like ours and acts like ours, but it's less money than ours? How do we keep that consumer? But then also, how do we leverage that consumer and make sure that they're sitting at brunch with their friends and boasting about our product and getting us new consumers? So that's really where I see PR having a function of sales, and really just being able to bookend the funnel in a way that maybe hasn't been considered before.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And it's really true. And I love how you're just like weaving in those aspects of like word of mouth and like, because I always thought of like brand and marketing as being so similar. And then you weave in PR and it's like there's all these elements that can come together to support each other. So Brian had a question. Brian, I don't know if you wanted to ask it yourself, but he's asking about supporting a regional launch. And so I think that that's
such a great question,
because you were just talking about, okay, you have this word of mouth, you have this billboard, like that's something you can really build out in terms of regional. Did you want to add to that, Brian?
No, I don't think so. But
it's clear.
We're launching in New York City metro area, and it seems I don't want to waste money on doing like a whole national campaign if I can be very targeted about it. And that's the question, I guess.
I love this question because it's so easy to talk about PR when it's a brand that has really strong distribution, is available everywhere, and has the budget to be investing in some of these bigger campaigns. The harder conversation is, what do I do when I'm only focused on California or New York or just the metropolitan area? And I strongly suggest that you do only focus there. If you have the ability to still get, that if you brought on a PR agency and they were like, well, we'll still try and pitch you to national publications, the likelihood of those publications picking you up if you don't have your D2C national availability is next to nothing. So you are better off just not doing anything if you don't have national availability on that grander scale. When you are doing something more regional, that's really where I think the line becomes even more blurred with PR and marketing, because some of my tactics, I'll give you a great example. I have a brand that we just brought on launching in SoCal Costco, and then they're also on Amazon, but we'll pretend the Amazon's not happening. They came to us through a partner from San Diego, and they were like, we need a PR agency. We're launching in the US for the first time. We're like, great. Where are you launching in the US? SoCal Costco. I said, instead of us trying to go out there with a big splash, what we really need to do is drive traffic to Costco, and we need to show the Costco buyer that we're supporting our launch there and our distribution there. So what I recommended is that we still do all that checklist that I shared with you in the beginning. We're still doing all of that. So we're really getting clear on what is our positioning, how do we set ourselves apart. It's a home cleaning brand, and that space is not only dominated by the big players, but there's also some really cool D2C players coming into the mix that I don't even want to play in that ball game. I want to, I say this a lot, but separate and elevate us in a league of our own. So I mentioned to you previously, I found like, or if you have a specific ingredient, this product has an ingredient. We're doubling down on this ingredient, and we are hiring influencers and just influencers. And we're doing some content partnerships that we're then creating that endorsement. And yes, it's sponsored, but it's still an endorsement that we are then taking and using through paid media to target SoCal only. So what we're doing is I'm saying we really only need like 2 to 3 influencers and maybe one content piece that just says this ingredient is missing from your home cleaning supplies. Make sure you're not buying cleaning supplies without this ingredient. And then we're taking those content pieces and we're putting paid spend behind them, targeted specifically towards Costco shoppers in the Southern California region. And it is an investment, but if you don't want to spend money on the paid ad opportunity or paid media, you could just work with local influencers and say, hey, we're launching in this region. Would you go in the store and buy our product and talk about our product? What typically won't work, and this is like cautionary tale, is do not try and do a media campaign for local media in that region if you as a brand are not there. So unless you founded the brand in that city, you don't have room to show up. No media outlet cares that you're launching your product in Sprouts in Southern California. They care if you're a founder doing something really cool, and oh, by the way, you're partnering with this local coffee shop to give out your product that morning, and there's a call to action for consumers. I think regionally, you have to get as close to the point of purchase as possible and go back to those objectives. Do you need to show your buyer that you're supporting the launch, or do you just need to drive velocity? Because those are two very different objectives that require different efforts.
Thanks. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you want me to talk about your brand in Southern California, I've got some ginseng.
Absolutely. We're opening 2 to 4 DCs with KeHE, and SoCal is one of them.
Exciting. So. That's awesome. Well, I loved your products too. I got to try them at Expo and very delicious. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to ask you about too, Jess, is about like PR stunts, right? Because I know you've probably seen some of these go awry, but I feel like smaller brands sometimes think like, okay, I just want to do something like make a splash or like do something wacky or like, basically a stunt. Like, does that work, or is there a place for it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts, and the first and primary thought is, unless you are a big brand, your reach and the splash that you can make is probably not going to get attention. The juice will probably not be worth the squeeze. Yeah. So if we're talking about emerging brands, it's a very different conversation than if we're talking about a bigger brand. We definitely have some brands that I'm planning something for the end of April right now that we're trying to create that PR. I call it like a PRable moment. But we also are setting expectations of the client that this might not get press pickup. This might not get the attention that we're looking for. Do we have other results that will be warranted from this campaign that we will deem as successful if no press coverage comes through? And that's really where the rest of, let me see. When we look, it's like, when we look at, I'll share this because I love visuals. This peso model, when we build campaigns, we look at every bucket here. How are we bringing this to life in each of these buckets? And each of these buckets have their own KPIs. So we might say, I want to just like share a campaign with you, but we may say, okay, well, actually, I'll share this one. Well, the CeraVe one is my big brand example of like everything orchestrated together, owned, paid, shared, earned, all in like this beautiful symphony of all these media channels coming together to make this pop. And let me tell you, I bought CeraVe after this. Like, and honestly, yeah, maybe it was principle, but the top of mind awareness that I had and like the messaging that came through this as a consumer frickin' worked. These are examples of ones that I came up with for one of our clients, Boba Bam. And it just shows like the different ways that we're meeting our objective through multiple avenues. And they're all very different. One is like influencer activation, one's an experiential, and one's more of like a sweepstakes, more like guerrilla marketing. But all of these have a PR component, but is not the sole reason. There are certain things like, I would say, let me see. So this one with Rationale. So Rationale is our non-alcoholic craft beer brand. We built insights around why January is like the most Monday month of the year. And it's like, it's drab, everyone's sad, it's dark, everyone's like restricting themselves. And with non-alcoholic beer, you could still do dry January and get all the fun. So we, at a very low budget, created these Janarchy kits. And we said, like, we want you to throw a Janarchy party for dry January. And we're doing a sweepstakes. We're giving all these kits to all of our influencers and ambassadors. And we got so much pickup for this because it was just creative, and it hit on a very, there was tension to it. There's like a pain point that consumers could relate to, that is like, wow, that's so true. January sucks. Like, how do we have fun in January? And so we ended up getting a ton of pickup on this with very little spent. And so there's a creativity aspect to it. I would say Koya is another example where we saw the Profi, people putting Koya protein in their Starbucks coffee. Koya just launched in Starbucks in October. We're now seeing this as like a menu hack. So we're pitching to Starbucks, this is a menu hack. You need to feature it. People need to know about this. It's going to increase sales. Pitching it to them. It was like 8:00 on a Tuesday night a couple weeks ago. And Koya calls us and they're like, Starbucks is posting tomorrow. They're posting on their feed, on their Instagram. They have like 17 million followers. They're posting tomorrow about the Profi. And we're like, oh my God, this is crazy. We drop everything and we pitch it out to media. And we're like, this is the menu hack that like the millennials and the Gen Zers are doing on TikTok, and Starbucks is endorsing it tomorrow. We need you to share it. I'll try and pull up the piece that we got from it. Where's my,
and that really back to your point
sorry,
about like having everything ready and being ready to scale, because it's like, you know, you think,
oh my God, totally.
And then it actually happens and you're like, okay, we have to be ready for this.
Oh my gosh. It's so, I mean, that's my ADD, like thrives in like these crisis moments. But I'll show you what happened because we jumped on this opportunity. We got this feature piece, which a feature piece these days is just so hard to come by. So we got this piece from that, the Starbucks hack to get extra protein in your iced coffee.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And it's all about Koya. So it's stuff like that. Like unfortunately, I love the creative concepts. I love the creative ideas. It's where like I personally thrive, but I just don't recommend investing a ton of budget if you cannot guarantee the results. If you like, I need my brands to say, we are totally okay not getting any press coverage for this because we're hoping to get email submissions, or like we're hoping to acquire emails from this, or we're hoping to get reach on that brand's channel or on their platform because we're doing a co-branded thing, and like just getting it in front of their audience is enough. You cannot control the media landscape. So trying to do something that fosters media attention just for the sake of media attention is probably not going to land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Well, one of the things that I've heard you mention a few times is like when something came up, then you like pitched it. And so we had our impact driven gift guide that we did we had like 70 plus brands in there. We partnered with 1% for the Planet and Regenerative Organic Alliance and all these other organizations. And then I like send it out to all these media contacts. And I mean, I'm not like a PR person. I didn't have a ton of contacts. And so, you know, I get in touch with some of these people. I like send it all out and like literally nothing happens. So it's like it's part of it was a matter of timing, I think. But I realized in that process that like these PR connections to the media, it's not just like, you can just send it and they're going to share it. Like you have to build relationships. And so being able to like, you know, as an emerging brand, it's tough when you have like a small budget and, you know, you don't have media contacts per se. So like, how can smaller companies like get access here, or like what are some of the ways that they can really maximize like a small budget when it comes to connecting?
Totally. It's such a great point and such a great question. And I feel so strongly about this because I was in-house at Perfect Bar for 5 years and I worked with outside agencies, but I ultimately brought PR fully in-house because I knew we could control the conversation a little bit better and we could act quicker on things like this because of the brand that we had. I think there are certain brands that are more, I mean, Coconut Cult's another great example of like, it's something that's kind of hard to get. It's definitely has that lure to it, and media want samples of it. And so by being in-house for that brand, you could easily get, you know, the attention or the interest that maybe another brand can't. However, there are tons of tools and resources available to small brands nowadays to kind of fast forward the conversation, no matter what product you have, no matter what life stage you have. And I know Mac is on this call, and he knows that I'm launching this this DIY PR toolkit, which has a lot of these resources in it, and it's taking me forever to build because it just gets more robust and more robust as I'm building it. But I'm so excited because it really does answer this very question, is like, how do we do it without an agency? And I'll give you a couple of those tools right now, one of which is Presshook. It's very affordable to get your brand uploaded on there. Things like even thing testing, uploading your brand to thing testing, is anywhere you can be discovered is really what you want to think about. And I will tell you though, that I pitch out, I mean, I've spent an entire Sunday in the past like month pitching a story to probably like 50 writers and did not get a single response. And a story that I don't pitch that much anymore. And this was a story that I worked so hard on, and I spent an entire Sunday pitching, and I crickets. So it happens, and it often isn't about the relationships. It's about being relevant and timely in that moment and being something that they're looking for. I will say that email is, it irks me to my core that email is still the best form of communication, but LinkedIn is also a great place. So if you find 5 editors that you're like, they are constantly writing stories that we should be in, message them on LinkedIn, DM them on Instagram, and just offer them samples. Another great tactic, oh my gosh, I just had it and I forgot it.
I'm glad you mentioned Press, because I've been recommending people there, and we actually were able to get like a discount code and send that to some of the community. And like, I mean, one of the first companies that we set up on there ended up getting on like Oprah's favorite things. And it was like this chain reaction of like getting picked up by different outlets on Presshook.
Date Better Snacks, Michelle just got in Bon Appetit at Expo from Presshook. So like, it's, and look, we can't work with every brand. And so I want brands to be taking advantage of these things, because the more traction that you build in those early stages, the more likely you are to have that momentum to work with an agency like ours and be like, look at this attention we're getting. Look, and that we turn away 90% of the brands that come to us, because I'm like, I really like you as a person. It's my fatal flaw. I fall in love with people. And I'm like, and I want to help you so badly. And that's why I'm building this Catalyst program. I don't think you have enough to justify what it's going to cost for us to come in and like do what we do best. I would rather you put the training wheels on, do some of this yourself, and come to us and say, we are getting so much attention, we cannot handle it. We need to take it up a notch. And that's when we come in. While you're in those early stages, and maybe you have one national account, or you are available on D2C and you're building your retail presence, that's when you should get on some of these platforms and these discovery channels. And Catalyst will have a laundry list of these tools and resources. But it's not always about the relationship, and you do not need an agency oftentimes to get in front of these people, not in the way that everything's working these days.
Yeah, that's great. It's so cool. Well, we have a few minutes left. Did anybody here have specific questions for Jess while we're on the call? I want to make sure we get your questions answered. I know she shared a lot. I mentioned earlier, I know some people joined late, but we do have it recorded. And so we'll share out the recording afterwards if you want to go back or you missed any part of it. But yeah, anything else that anybody wanted to chime in with? Questions for Jess? Questions? I know you guys have questions. No? Okay. Well, We can definitely share, when we share this, you'll be able to see the slides that Jess shared. And, so what is this toolkit that you're putting together? What's the timeline on that? Like, can people get in on that now,
It
or?
was supposed to be January 1st. We're almost in April. I had really high hopes of how quickly I could build an entire course, and for the first time, never done it before. So yeah, it's a 10 module course that essentially is a DIY toolkit for emerging brands. And really it covers my experience being in-house at Perfect Bar for 5 years, and then having Maven and working with over 30 brands over the last 3.5 years. And I thought, I've built all these tools, I have all these resources that I'm just sitting on, and they're not things that can't be found or provided. It just takes time to build them, and it's really just like my expertise on paper. So I did it so that it's highly affordable and something that you can scale. So every lesson, there's 32 lessons. Every lesson has a video overview, really similar to what we just did today, and just kind of chunks it all out. And then each lesson you can add on ad hoc tools and resources that I am basically giving to you that when you need them. So you could go back and like purchase it if you are ready to start applying for awards. We have a list of 144 award opportunities that happen throughout the year. Additionally, you can have book consulting packages with me. So if you have a very specific campaign that you're working on, or a launch that you're working on, I'm selling consulting packages that you get like 30-minute sessions to book with me throughout the year whenever you want. I just think that's what brands need right now. They don't need to be signing on with an agency at $10,000 a month and probably getting burnt out and never working with an agency again. That's what I don't want to happen.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Oh, we do have a question. And Andrea,
Cool.
you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just curious, because the landscape has changed so much in PR, where it's this pay to play and affiliate links and stuff like that. So are you still seeing like traditional coverage happen through the, relationships or other pitches you're doing? Or are you getting more and more, like BuzzFeed's like, yeah, well, this is great, but we need an affiliate link in order to run with us?
Such a great example. And I'm so glad you asked, because it was one thing that I really wanted to share. All of this, to answer your question, yes, we are absolutely still getting, I would say, majority earned coverage. However,
okay, that's great.
This is all earned coverage and really quality pieces, I would say. However, we are advising every brand that we have on D2C to sign up for affiliate. And there is an entire lesson in, it's actually more than a lesson. It's like, is it a lesson? It's like a whole module in Catalyst about affiliate specifically. And I take you through like how to build out your affiliate program. But all these publications all have affiliates. So these pieces of coverage that you see here on the left, that has an affiliate link tied to it. It's a very different strategy. It has similarities, but there's still an editorial component to it. But same thing with sponsored. I say the criteria that has to be in earned media, commerce media, and sponsored media for it to still be considered PR is there needs to be a relationship. It means that you can't just slap your brand on a Facebook ad and nobody's reviewing it. There's no one that you have to talk to. There's still a relationship. There's still a storytelling component. You still need to have a relevancy to show up. And the third is that there's still editorial integrity. So I just placed a article for one of our brands for Heart Health Month, and I was like, yeah, give us what you're proposing for the article. And they're like, this more of this sort of thing where they were like, oh, here's what we want to title it. And I was like, no, I think we want more of this title. They're like, no, we're going to stick with this because this is our editorial guidelines. That's what works with our publication. I was like, well, I tried. And so I had to go back to our client and say, I know we're paying for this, but they pushed back and I pushed hard. They're not budging. We're getting this article and it's going to have this headline. We got some other wins in there, but there's still that editorial integrity that exists.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kirsten, is there one?
Yes.
You need to sign
share a
up.
sale.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, share sale. Cool. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jess, so much. I really
Yeah,
appreciate you taking the time
of
to
course.
go over all of this with us. And yeah, if anybody has any questions or where can they learn more about Maven if they want to do your program?
I mean, I'll definitely be sharing it on LinkedIn, and I will. I'm trying to think. I can have you send it out with the recording of just the like email sign up to get notified first, and I'll be sending out a discount code as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that would be great because yeah, I think it's a really cool program that gives people, access to something that we haven't really seen a lot of. Presshook is a cool tool, but it sounds like you're
That's just like one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay, well, I will send out some more information with the recording, and then if you have any questions or if you're not already signed up for Brand Pollinators email, please reach out to me, Kate at brandpollinators.com, or you can sign up for our email on our website. And yeah, thank you all so much for coming. This was amazing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for everyone's questions.
Yeah, have a great day, everyone.